What happens when you spend nearly $100 million on two players and still can't figure out how to stop opponents from scoring at will? The Los Angeles Lakers find themselves in the most peculiar position in modern NBA history, simultaneously loaded with talent and desperately vulnerable, like a Ferrari with no brakes racing toward a cliff at breakneck speed. The stark reality facing the Lakers is both hilarious and terrifying. With LeBron James and Luka Doncic commanding a combined $98.5 million in salary, this franchise has essentially bet the house on offensive firepower while seemingly forgetting that basketball games are won by preventing the other team from scoring just as much as they are by making shots. It's the equivalent of building a mansion but forgetting to install locks on the doors. Let's address the elephant in the room that Lakers management apparently decided to ignore during their roster construction. Despite having two generational talents and a supporting cast that includes DeAndre Ayton at center and Jake LaRavia on the wing, this team's perimeter defense remains about as intimidating as a paper tiger in a rainstorm. The harsh truth is that unless Doncic experiences some miraculous defensive awakening, think Paul on the road to Damascus, but with better footwork, opposing wings and guards are going to feast on this Lakers defense like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. The mathematical equation here is simple and brutal. When you can't stop anyone, it doesn't matter how many points your superstars can score. This isn't just a minor roster imperfection that can be masked by scheme adjustments or coaching wizardry. This is a fundamental structural flaw that threatens to undermine everything the Lakers are trying to accomplish. In today's NBA, where perimeter shooting and wing play dominate the landscape, having porous perimeter defense is like trying to win a water fight with a colander instead of a water gun. The Lakers' reported interest in Andrew Wiggins tells you everything you need to know about their desperation levels. When you're considering a player whose career has been more roller coaster than rocket ship, you're clearly grasping at straws rather than executing a coherent strategy. The fact that a deal seems unlikely only adds another layer of frustration to an already problematic situation. What makes this even more maddening for Lakers fans is the recognition that their team's trade ammunition is essentially non-existent. When you've got limited chips to play with and massive needs to address, every potential move becomes a high-stakes gamble that could either save your season or completely derail your championship aspirations. It's like playing poker with Monopoly money while everyone else at the table has real cash. The reality is that the Lakers constructed this roster in a way that severely limits their flexibility. They went all in on star power without considering the downstream effects on their ability to make meaningful improvements. Now, they're discovering that having expensive superstars doesn't automatically solve roster construction problems. It often amplifies them. Enter the Phoenix Suns, a franchise that has undergone more transformations than a Hollywood starlet, and potentially the Lakers' salvation from their defensive woes. After buying out Bradley Beal and trading away Kevin Durant, Phoenix finds itself in rebuilding mode with Jalen Green and Devin Booker as their new cornerstone pieces. This organizational shift creates opportunities that the Lakers desperately need to exploit. When teams undergo massive roster overhauls, previously untouchable players suddenly become available, and that's exactly what might happen with Dillon Brooks, the all-defensive wing who could solve many of Los Angeles' perimeter problems. Lakers insider Jovan Buha raised the fascinating question on his podcast. Does Phoenix, I think, eventually have the realization that they're not going to be a playing team? And does Dillon Brooks become available? This isn't just wishful thinking, it's strategic analysis based on the cold reality that rebuilding teams often prioritize future assets over current win-now pieces. Brooks represents everything the Lakers need but currently lack. He's coming off the best shooting season of his career, which addresses their need for floor spacing. More importantly, he brings the kind of defensive intensity and versatility that could transform their perimeter defense from liability to strength. With 2 seasons remaining on his contract, he also provides the kind of stability that championship-caliber teams require. Here's where this potential trade gets deliciously complicated. Brooks and James have legitimate bad blood dating back to Brooks' time with the Memphis Grizzlies. creating a soap opera subplot that could either implode spectacularly or become the kind of redemption story that Hollywood screenwriters dream about. The question becomes whether the Lakers are willing to prioritize basketball fit over personal comfort, and more importantly, whether they're ready to limit James' influence on front office decisions if it means maximizing Doncic's potential. This isn't just about acquiring a player, it's about organizational philosophy and who really controls the franchise's direction. If the Lakers truly want to build around Doncic as their centerpiece moving forward, they need to surround him with exactly the type of players Brooks represents: shooters and defenders who can maximize his unique skill set. Personal animosity between veterans becomes a luxury they simply can't afford when championship windows are closing rapidly. The proposed trade package of Rui Hachimura and Dalton Knecht for Brooks represents the kind of calculated risk that separates championship teams from pretenders. Hachimura, despite his potential, has never quite lived up to expectations and is in the final year of his contract, making him more of a rental than a long-term solution. Knecht, while promising, doesn't fit seamlessly with Doncic and Austin Reeves in the backcourt rotation. His inclusion in this theoretical deal makes sense from both a fit perspective and asset management standpoint. Sometimes the best trades involve moving good players who don't quite fit for players who fill specific needs perfectly. For Phoenix, this package offers both immediate flexibility through Hachimura's expiring contract and future upside with Knecht's development potential. The Suns get to maintain their timeline flexibility while acquiring a young player who could develop into the ideal floor spacer next to Booker and Green. What makes the Brooks pursuit so compelling is how it addresses the Lakers' most glaring weakness while leveraging their organizational strengths. Brooks can be deployed strategically in playoff matchups against elite Western Conference wings like Jalen Williams or Kevin Durant, providing the kind of defensive versatility that championship teams require in postseason battles. The beautiful irony here is that acquiring Brooks wouldn't just improve the Lakers' defense, it would fundamentally change their identity from a team that tries to outscore opponents to one that can actually stop them when it matters most. That transformation could mean the difference between another disappointing playoff exit and a legitimate championship run. Brooks might not be a superstar, but championship teams are built on players who embrace the dirty work with enthusiasm. His willingness to guard the opponent's best player, make the extra pass, and hit the crucial three-pointer represents exactly the kind of championship mentality this Lakers roster desperately needs. The clock is ticking on the Lakers' championship window, and every game that passes with their current defensive limitations intact is a game closer to wasted potential. The question isn't whether they can afford to make a move for someone like Brooks, it's whether they can afford not to make that move when everything they've built depends on defensive competence they currently don't possess. This story will define whether the Lakers' expensive experiment can actually translate into championship success, or whether they'll become a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing star power over roster balance. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the margin for error continues to shrink with each passing day. What's your take on this potential trade scenario? Do you think the Lakers should swallow their pride and bring in Brooks despite the personal history, or should they look elsewhere for their defensive salvation? Drop your thoughts below and give this video a thumbs up if you're as fascinated by the Lakers championship chess match as we are.